Welcome to the Copper King Mine and Railroad. Today we're going to talk about the track gang at Bingham Canyon Mine. This was entry-level job for most people who started at the mine. And we're going to talk about more on the layout construction. So stay tuned. I lied. We're not talking about the layout construction. We're still working on building the train room. So let's review. First, I dug out the crawl space. Then I pumped the cement into the floor and for the footings. Then I pumped the cement in for the walls and for where the layout will be. Of course, I stripped the forms. I got to use the 2x4s for framing the walls, but I used on the formwork because I made them a little bit longer, so that was good. So I framed the room, insulated, moved wires and heat runs and different things you have to do in construction. Also, I ran sprinkler wires, that's heavier gauge wire, for the layout itself, for the track work, for the layout. And I ran phone wires for the low buildings and the houses throughout the layout. Had to plan ahead for all this wiring. It went up the walls and into the ceiling and then down to the layouts. Then I ran some recessed lighting. I found a formula for countertops I used for that recessed lighting. Then I drywalled the whole thing. Then I wanted these rounded corners, so I was experimenting with different things on the rounded corners. I used masonite on the wall-to-wall corners, great big gentle curves. On that one outside corner right there, I used cement form. And then on the wall-to-ceiling curves, I used PVC water pipe. I cut into 4s and put that in there. When I started plastering, it turned into a really big job. I actually had to make special tools to finish that off up in there, in that plastering. Then I painted the room with 3 different shades of blue, darker to lighter, and then I shaded it all in with the rollers. Then I found these really neat kerosene lanterns, so I took them and converted them to electricity and ran them down the center of the room. So it took me over 2 years to build the train room, but now I'm getting excited because now I can start working on the layout. The track gang. I worked 2 years on the track gang, on and off. It was hard work in all kinds of weather. I have to say, I loved it. So it was a must for my layout. The track gang was an entry-level job for most people who started at the mine. There was 3 different kinds of track gang jobs. In the pit, the line job, out on the dumps, it was called shaking out, and the main line, that was maintaining and maintenance. I'll talk about all 3. The pit had over 2 miles of temporary railroad. It was always on the move. A shovel would make a pass loading 100-ton ore cars. Then the rails had to be picked up and moved closer to the level for the next shovel pass. You had to replace the ties, piece the rail back together, resurface it. Now here's a picture of a line job down in the pit. You can see it looks like a pretty miserable day. Look at all the water. But you know, they worked in all kinds of weather. There's some track shifters at the end here, and they've moved the rail next to the level. Now they got to replace ties and piece that rail back together. And then there's a dozer along here. He's pushing material over for they can resurface it, if you see along there. And then these next pictures is you got a track shifter in the background, but the guys are lifting some rail tongs. And then this picture, this is interesting. This is they got a push cart with a electric generator on it, and they got vibrating paddles to tamp the ties. You can see now they're resurfacing in that right there. Here's some old track equipment. Here's the old rail tongs you used to, that's what them guys up there was using. They got tie tongs here and track jack, spike maul, claw bar. So that was kind of cool. Here's a picture of the track shifter at work in the mine right here. They use them out in the mine, out in the dumps. We'll show some more pictures out in the dumps. And then this picture is a 1962, and they've got a track machine right there and some couple of air hammers. They're putting some ties in with some air hammers right there. So that's kind of fun. The dumps. Side dump cars would dump their loads, then a snowplow would come by and push it over the rest of the way. Now this would fill in the center of the track. So they'd bring out the track shifter, it would lift the rail up, and then the dump gang would fill in underneath the ties. This was called shaking out. After that, then they'd fix the ties and resurface it. So that was the job out in the dumps. The last track gang job was the main line. This was like railroading anywhere else, just maintaining the line. What was neat, that in the summertime they had college gangs. Now they made enough money to pay for their schooling, and it taught them how to work.